All right, good afternoon. I am with the NFL legend, Ken Harvey, 10-year NFL vet and former first round pick. Appreciate you hopping on, Ken.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So, this is episode 9 with Dudes Advocating Mental Health. Ken is going to touch on some awesome things about playing in the NFL, outside of the NFL, and some experience of you experience. So, why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself before we start?
That's always actually kind of hard. 'Cause, you don't want to come across like you're bragging, but played in the NFL for 11 years. Listen, married for almost 40 years, me and my wife, Janice. Two boys, well, three. My oldest passed away, but three kids. And let's see. I think that's about it. I mean, I like writing. I've written some books, children's books, and a couple of thriller suspense novels. And I'm just trying to stay as young looking as possible. But as I'm looking at my reflection on this screen, I look a little bit old. I gotta get some dye going. So we,
Hey,
we,
I'll tell you what, I saw you I think a year ago and you were still looking like you could play in the NFL the way you were looking, so
yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
absolutely. So yeah, to kind of touch on your NFL career, you were a first round draft pick and became one of the NFL's best linebackers, all pro, Pro Bowl multiple times. Looking back, what was the biggest pressure people never saw that when you were playing?
So I guess the biggest pressure that people never saw. I mean, pressure in a lot of ways, in different ways. I mean, I told you about our son passing away from SIDS, and he was around 6 weeks old and passed away. Pressure was actually, fortunately, it was easier on me because I had football and I can run and hit somebody, and you take out your anger on people, and you got paid for it. It was tougher for my wife because she had to deal with it while I wasn't there, and fortunately, she had a lot of good people around her. I know oftentimes you deal with stuff by yourself, and it's really tough, and so that was kind of one of those things that you dealt with that people don't know about, but that you had to go through. That and then some of the injuries. This was like during football, but some of the injuries. When you get hurt, you could be a superstar one year, get hurt, and you become the invisible man. And it's kind of tough to go through that. And if you don't make a comeback or someone takes your job, that's a hard thing to deal with.
Absolutely. I mean, especially like you said, when you're at the top of the world, all pro, and then you get an injury and you're kind of back to the depth chart looking at guys that, were fourth, fifth strings and you're competing with them now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I tore my ACL, which this is almost 30 years ago, but I tore my ACL. That was where people chalked it up as a career-ending injury. Then I tore my rotator cuff in my shoulder, another career-ending injury because I was basically known for part of my strength, and then I tore my labrum in my shoulder and ripped part of my pec. So all those were like kind of like your career may be over with, but fortunately, the ACL. I did that, and I think it was my rotator cuff or my labrum, but that was all in Arizona, and I was fortunate enough to come here, and then still had a great career. So just blessed.
Absolutely. I mean, you're Ring of Fame with Washington, so that's
Yeah,
not an easy trait to come by.
yeah. I straight God, but I was fortunate my first year here with the Washington Redskins, Commanders now, but the first year there were. There were a lot of good guys who really helped me out. There was a lot of defensive players who kind of pushed me along the way. Monty Coleman, who's no longer here, but Monty Coleman, Darrell Green. There were guys who were there, Tim Johnson, who were there, who were like, "Come on, Ken, you can do this. You got one more. I see what you're doing wrong." Offensive lineman Jim Lachey, who would, push me in the ground in practice. Probably one of the toughest guys I had to go through in practice, but then he would always help me up and say, "Okay, this is what you're doing wrong. This is how I got you." And sometimes that's where you get the best training is in practice. And so when you go into the game, you haven't seen stuff that you're not seeing anything that's new. You've already seen it before. You've already learned how to master it. And so, coming here was it was a phenomenal opportunity. And then you got more TV time here than in Arizona. So people knew of me more than, in Arizona.
Right, right. And I think I'm 31 now, and I think now at my age, I am way more able to take instruction, right? So maybe earlier on in your career, like getting taught something is harder, but once you're like a vet, you're like, okay, I'm willing to learn. Was that something you were able to do when you were a couple years in, as opposed to the rookie who was like, you know what, I can handle this myself?
No, actually, when I was younger, I mean, I kind of knew what I was good at, knew what I wasn't good at, and it was more about proving myself and showing, this is who I am. Back then, being 230 as a 230, 235 as a linebacker, back then was undersized. They wanted guys 6'5", 6'4", 255, 275. That was the ideal linebacker. As I got older, the hard thing is when you get older, sometimes you get set in your way, and you think that this is the way it worked for me in the past, it'll work for me forever, and a lot of times you have to learn to adjust, and that's the hardest thing. Is that sometimes after you keep doing things over and over and over again, um, times will change and you have to make adjustments. And it's not always easy to make adjustments because your body, your mind, everything you believe in is used to doing things a certain way. And just like, as we talk on this, for me, it was always, suck it up and deal with it.
Yeah,
You just suck it up, bite the bullet, you take it and be a man, just suck it up. And then you realize, sometimes you can't suck it up. Sometimes you need to ask for help. Sometimes you need to reach out to people and say this is what I'm dealing with, and that line of suck it up and deal with it like a man. It was good, and it's there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not always applicable to the situation, to what the problem is. I'm trying
right.
to use some big words.
No, I agree. I mean, I agree with the sense where it's like, you're a man, you can handle it. Yes, we're men, we can handle a lot, but if you're not able to ask for help, and you're not willing to accept help, you're gonna put yourself behind the eight ball. And I think being able to ask for help really goes a long way.
Yeah, and it's sometimes it's not so much people aren't willing to accept help. Sometimes it's you don't know how to accept help.
Right.
And it's something that's new, it's foreign, right? You've always been that lone warrior and it's foreign. And then people may look at you like, well, you don't know how to take help or you don't know how to do this and that. And it's not so much that, it's just it's you haven't been trained to do that. And it takes effort to learn like I said, to learn something new. And that's where brothers that care about you, they're willing to put in the time to help you along the way. And then it's also up to you to try to make some effort in adjusting to learn it.
Right, right. No, absolutely. And then you've spoken openly about people trying to take advantage of your success and your money. I mean, in the NFL, obviously you make very good money. Was there a specific moment when you realized not everyone in your corner had your best interests at heart? And how did that change you?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing I realize it's not so much people, it's me. Like learning how to say no is probably one of the greatest gifts ever, right? And so a lot of times I blame people, and rightfully, they probably did stuff that probably wasn't right, but at the most part, the foundation of it was me knowing that I should have said no, that the deal looked too good to be true, that the person didn't seem to fit my personality, that I didn't feel like I could trust that person, yet I went ahead and did something. And so, I think the hardest thing is the hardest and probably one of the easiest thing is learn how to say no, learning how to trust some people because a lot of people have good intentions, and then to know that people have good intentions. It's up to you to dig and understand if those intentions are in line with what you're trying to do and what you want to do. And that's, I don't want to look back and say I could blame somebody. I at the most part, I look back and say, man, I wish I would have learned how to say no. You say yes. if you're people pleasing, you say yes to everybody. On one side, it's a good thing. On the other side, you'll never ever get to the end of saying, people saying, "Could you do this?" You'll never get to the end of can you help me? And so you'll drive yourself crazy in that way.
Yeah, no, I think that's funny. You just grow up your whole life saying yes and no, and you don't realize the true value of those two simple words,
Yeah,
and the power they hold, right? So it's like
100%.
a simple no can change your life, and a simple yes can change your life.
100%. I mean, there's a little quote, there's a little piece in the Bible that says, "Let your yes be yes and your no be no."
Right.
It's small, it's simple, but it's a powerful thing. And a lot of people don't understand it or don't know it. And because, a lot of good people don't want to hurt people's feelings or care about people and want to help people. But there comes a time where you have to be focused on what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. And that was one of the ways, even growing up trying to get to the NFL. Fortunately, I said no enough times to end up at the place where I wanted to be instead of yes. I could have said yes to going to parties. I could have said yes to doing other stuff where I said no to that. And I did say yes to, I'm gonna go to the gym and I'm gonna go and work out and I'm gonna try to improve my craft. So, it's where you say yes and where you say no at can make a big difference.
Absolutely, super powerful. And then when the NFL checks stopped coming in, and the stadium lights turned off, and a lot of players struggle with their identity because you're only known for being this amazing football player. You're the best at your position. You're in the top like 0.1% of the world of your profession. How hard was it for Ken Harvey after football before you figured out your next purpose in writing? Did it take you a little bit of time, or did you know what you
No,
wanted?
I was lost. The hardest thing is to be in an area where everybody knows you as Ken Harvey, the former football player. You still look like you can play, blah, 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 blah. And not knowing what your next step is and being embarrassed or not, maybe not embarrassed, being afraid of trusting people or trusting yourself or having a focus and another goal to go to. And so you want to walk around in limbo. And I was kind of walking around in limbo and fear of not knowing what to do. I did that for years. I mean, I would start something and for me, I feel like I had a lot of gifts. I would dabble in a piece of everything, but I would never grab and go focus 100% on any one thing. And so I was kind of in the middle of, I was wishy-washy in the middle. I was halfway, a foot in, a foot out. And so I think I've done a lot of good stuff, but it's been about 40 years. I'm at the point now at 61 years old where I kind of figured that I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's not to look at my past and say, man, it was so bad. But now I look at the past and say it was training to get to where I'm at now. And sometimes it's just your perspective on how you look at stuff. The drama and the things that you may go through, sometimes it's just training to put you in a position to what you're really supposed to do. And the openness is in accepting what you're supposed to do. For me, it probably took 40 years where it could have took, 5 years or 2 years, but I'm knucklehead and sometimes you don't learn lessons, but here I am. So there you go.
I mean, that's the best part about life, right? There's no real pedometer or speedometer of saying, hey, you need to figure it out at this time. You need to figure it out this time. It's like everyone has their own journey with Christ and with life. And some people figure it out at 80, some people figure it out at 20, but
Yeah.
you can't judge someone for taking their time. And kudos to you for realizing like, hey, now I know my true purpose after football, and you're a successful author. And how
Yeah.
how important has that become in your day-to-day life, being able to deliver these messages not only to children but to adults?
Well, I mean, to me, that's one of the gifts God's given me is not that I'm a great speaker, but that I like to think that I try to be real with people because what I'm saying is what I've been going through myself, and to be able to deliver the message, it's cool because someone delivered that message to me, and I've heard people talking to my life and speaking to my life, and so. to be able to do that to another person is one is great for me, but also, there's a need out there, for someone to speak into someone's life. And it's no fault of anybody. Like you could be the greatest dad in the world, but your kids may listen to someone else before they would listen to your dad. My own son would listen. My youngest son, I would try to work out with him. And he's like, no, that's not how my coach said to work out. And I'm like, man, I know a little something about working out. Maybe you should listen to me. But they'll listen to somebody else. And all you can do as a parent is plant that seed, continue to plant that seed, and then hopefully all that lines up together. So, just trying to make a difference in someone's life. And it's not that it's something that I'm necessarily in. I don't want to say I am intentionally, but I'm not intentionally. It's what I do because that's just a part of who I am. I'm just trying to help out as much as I can using the gifts that I've been given.
Absolutely. And I think you touched on a funny subject where it's like your child, you played in the NFL, who better to ask than your dad? But it's funny when a message comes from someone else, it just hits different. But when you look back, you're like, dang, dad was right. I should have
Right,
listened. But it
right.
takes some time sometimes.
It does, but and as parents, you hopefully you get around your kids get around people that believe kind of what you believe or hear what you hear, and so the message that you're trying to promote it aligns with what they're saying somewhere down the line too. So yeah, it works. Hopefully it works. I think as kids get older, I look and some stuff my dad told me that I thought I was all proud and like, oh, I know what to do. Now I'm kind of like, dang, I wish I would have listened to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
And then if you could sit down with every rookie entering the NFL today, just for 5 minutes, what's one financial or life lesson you'd make sure they understood before signing the first contract or maybe the second contract?
Well, one, it's like you've heard it all the time. NFL not for long. There's no guarantees, right? Enjoy the ride. It's a moment. It's a blink in your life. You look back and you say, "Man, I played in the NFL for however many years. Even if you played for 20 years, it's still only a moment, a short moment in your life. So, enjoy the ride." I would say also, what do you find out who you are and what you enjoy doing or what you want to do, and don't be afraid of using those um, focusing on those gifts as well, or looking at those gifts as well, planting some seeds early on. So when football stops or whatever sport you're doing stops, you can move into that. You have a focus, you have a new direction. So don't just focus on the one hill, master the one hill that's right in front of you, but also know that there are a bunch of other hills to climb and that you're trying to prepare yourself for that. NFL is just, I mean, it's a great game, right? You play it and you have fun, and it's a dream of millions of kids, and you got a chance to do it. But I would say believe in yourself, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Understand what you want to do with your money. Be a good steward of your money and your finance. Learn to talk to people and trust people, and then have some fun. Treat people with respect because you're no greater than anybody else. You've been fortunate enough to be in that position, but at the end of the day, as you find out, once it's over, those doors close a little bit quicker. Those invitations stop coming as fast. Fortunately, I still get some of that stuff, but it's just not the same. And so enjoy the moment that you have.
Yeah, and I think the same can be said about a lot of professions, right? Like if you're the top salesman at your company or you're the best teacher in the region, it's like success doesn't always last. So maybe styles change and the way you sold change, and you're not the top salesman or you're not the top teacher. So enjoy the ride, but understand that success is temporary, right? You need to understand what life can be outside of it. And if you're able to go with the ebbs and flows of life and realize, yes, success is great, but I need to live in the tough times too and get out of the tough times to understand and appreciate success.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, now as I'm older and wiser, I got a few grays. You realize, as much as I look at my highlight tapes and think I was the greatest player in the world, there were, you know, a whole bunch of plays where I missed tackles, a whole bunch of plays that I didn't get sacks, a whole bunch of plays that I got knocked on my butt. Life is not going to be perfect. It's what you learn from those failures. Sometimes it makes you a great player. It's what you do when you go back and you review the film, when you review your life, when you start looking at your stuff and you start looking at it in a positive way, because your mindset dictates a lot of things. But if you start looking at it saying, okay, I'm looking at it not in anger, not in hurt, not looking at it in the wrong way of being a failure or whatever, but looking at it and saying, okay, what can I learn from this and how can I get better? What when I'm watching films, I used to hate coaches yelling at you. You're going through the same thing over and over and over again, and they're highlighting what you did wrong. I was angry and I wanted to choke out the coaches, but the reality is they were trying to make me better. And so what am I doing? How can I get better? What technique can I learn from somebody else that's been successful doing the same thing that I'm doing? What can I learn from them? What can I learn from my opponent? How are they planning on stopping me? And I say opponent, how in football it's a person, but in life it could be the world. In life it could be your job. In life it could be how are they trying to stop me from achieving what I'm trying to achieve? And for me, it was getting to the quarterback. So what techniques are they using? What are the techniques that I'm using that have been successful and what have been failures? What when I get a sack, when I get a whatever touchdown, celebrate the victory, learn to celebrate the victory as well, because football is a great quick game where you can celebrate and pat each other on the back, but as we know in life, it can easily change quickly, right? And you could be up by 7 points, you got a sack, you're the leading tackler, but you could still lose the game. So it can change. It may not always go the way you want it to go.
No, that's powerful, and I completely agree. And then as a professional athlete, you're often expected to be tough at all times, right? Physically, mentally, and be on the game. Was there ever a point where your mental health suffered? And obviously, when your child passed, I'm sure that was extremely difficult. And what finally gave you the permission to talk about it instead of hiding it?
So I mean, there were a lot of times like that. I mean, when I dropped out of high school and didn't play my senior high school football during that time where I dropped out was really tough. I tried to end it all. I took, I swallowed a bunch of pills. Drank the bottle of lighter fluid. I thought it'd be better for me not to be on this earth than to be on this earth. And at that time, I felt like I was on my knees and I was praying, and it felt like God said you had a purpose and a destiny, and didn't give me details, didn't tell me what it was. But once you hear and you feel like you have a purpose and a destiny, you're supposed to do something. That was enough to at least get me back on track and to give me focus. And so that was a moment. Then with my son passing away, that was a tough time. Then post football, after I stopped playing, that had been a tough time trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what I could do, and not being pigeonholed into a box, or at least what I thought was a box of what you were supposed to be. Everyone was like, you're supposed to be, yo, man, you'll be a great sportscaster, and you'll be a great news guy and all that stuff. And that's what everybody thought I was supposed to be. And it wasn't malice at the time. I thought, everybody was trying to pigeonhole me into something, but they were really looking out and saying, "Man, you got this talent. You could do this." But for me, I took it as people thinking that's all you're supposed to be. And so I just kind of closed up on that and said, and didn't do anything instead of doing something. Writing for me, writing books, children's books was a good outlet to express myself. I didn't have to face anybody. But then if I look back and said, man, I wrote these books that I think are pretty good. I mean, things I would change and adjust and all that stuff. But what I didn't do is I half stepped into it. I didn't do a good marketing push with my books. I didn't really push it out there that I've written these books. I didn't separate myself. And so, you're only going to get as much as you believe in yourself. And I didn't believe I had the talent, but I didn't have the belief. And those two things have to go together, just like in sports. you can be talented, but if you don't believe in yourself as a football player, you'll get hurt or you'll get beat down, you'll get cut. Same thing and everything else is that you can have the talent, but if you don't believe in yourself or believe that you're there for a reason, then it'll never achieve what you wanted to achieve. And so I kind of found myself in a life of mediocre, of maybe having the gifts, writing the books and all that stuff was pretty easy for me, I guess, minus the grammar. But the stories and all that stuff was pretty easy. But doing it, marketing, pushing it, believing in it, whatever, that to me was hard, and I didn't do anything. And so I think those things you have to really learn to believe. And if you don't know something, then you also, for me, you got to trust people that you got to trust the people that do know something, and you also need to be sure of yourself so that when you say this is what I need, then if they don't do what you say, what you want them to do, then it's okay to get rid of them. It's okay to say, I don't need you. Push away from them because you won't please everybody. You got to go into what you focus on. And that's kind of it. I'm sorry, I'm talking real quick, but I looked in the Bible and I was like, there are parts in the Bible where it's like Jesus did this stuff, and I was like, man, this could be a book. Jesus is a jerk. And I told somebody that title, and they were like, whoa, whoa, don't say that. But I was like, there are times in the Bible where I'm like, man, if you looked at it to me, I'm like, that's kind of been a jerk, right? Because I didn't understand. Like Jesus was like, they said your mother and your brother's out there waiting on you, and he's like, well, who is my mother and brother? Let them wait. Whoa, that's kind of jerkish. So when the storm came and he was sleeping in the boat, they're like, Master, wake up, and they're freaking out, and he's like, why are you freaking out? I'm like, wait, whoa, champ, and so you look at all these moments, but then you realize as I start digging into it, is because Jesus had a purpose. He knew that he was on this earth for a certain amount of time, and he knew what he was supposed to do. And there was nothing that was going to stop him from doing what he was supposed to do in his purpose. And in his limited time, he wanted to mold the people, his apostles, his disciples. He wanted to mold them into who they're supposed to be and do what he was supposed to do in that limited amount of time. So he had to be focused. And so sometimes it's not that you're being mean to people or that you're insulting people or that you're whatever. It's that you know what you're supposed to do, and people and obstacles and different things will suck time and direction and everything away from you. And so you have to be intentional for what you're supposed to do. And so that's kind of trying to what I'm trying to do now. And I say try, I'm getting better at it because the word try gives you an excuse, which my wife tells me, which is true. It just gives you an excuse to not actually do it. But I'm getting better at focusing on what I feel that I'm supposed to do. And even if I'm wrong in what I feel that God has put me on this earth to do, I can't imagine how it wouldn't be beneficial in some way to somebody doing what I feel like I'm supposed to do. Because I'm not doing anything criminal or anything like that. I'm just trying to be who I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, and I think that's powerful, allowing yourself to be who you're supposed to be because we all grow up thinking we're supposed to be that, thinking we're supposed to be this. But deep down, you accept who you're supposed to be and you be it. I think it's a powerful thing because a lot of people put up these barriers, put up these walls, and they never truly accept who they're supposed to be, whether they're an amazing artist, but they don't think that they should be an artist because maybe their mom or dad don't think it's a good job or they don't think being a writer is this or that. It's like if you truly accept who you're supposed to be, it's an extremely powerful thing. And not a lot of people are able to say they're doing what they're calling. And I think that's powerful.
And then even if you're not, like, you can be, you know, you can get a job and you're an accountant, but you want to be an artist. You can look back and say, God, I never and blame everybody for not allowing you to be the artist that you wanted to be. Or you can say, man, I've learned that to be an accountant. I did that. I did that well for my job, but now the opportunity is here for me to be an artist. And all that time that I spent being an accountant will help me fund myself so that I can become who I'm supposed to be. It wasn't a knock, it wasn't a push against what you're supposed to be. It was allowing you, or it was training in order to get to where you're supposed to be. And so sometimes we can look at bad situations and think that that's stopping, that's closing the door. And the reality is it's not closing the door, it's just giving you preparation, training, or positioning to be who you're supposed to be.
No, I completely agree. I think that's extremely powerful. Because in life, your journey, your destination is not it's not a straight line, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it's gonna be up and down, it's gonna be here and there. It's almost like a roller coaster, right? That's your journey in life. And if you're willing to accept that not everything is a straight destination, it's truly about the journey, and you enjoy the journey.
yeah,
I think it's one of those things where you start to say, oh, you know what? I didn't get that promotion, or I didn't get this. Maybe God's not trying to teach me something. Maybe I'm supposed to be where I'm supposed to be for a little longer to truly appreciate it. Because when I'm at that next step, I'm not going to have what I have right now. And obviously, more money is great, but I need to appreciate everything I have right now. Because when I get that extra money, I might not appreciate what I had, right?
100%. Yeah. It, I mean, look, and then sometimes the reason you're doing something, you'll discover it along the way. This podcast, I don't know how many viewers and all that stuff, but you may do it and it may not be, the world's greatest and you're making millions and millions of dollars from it, but someone listening to it, it may be just what they need to hear and you don't know. And by you not doing it, that's the position that you were supposed to be in to save someone's life. And you choose not to do it because you weren't doing, you're not getting all the accolades and all the glory that you thought you should get from it. But the reality is it was here for you for this reason. So that's yeah. I mean, I try to at least I try to believe that for myself. And there's just things you'll learn along the way. I wish I had the magic blueprint. The Grays give you that wisdom, like you see on the TV shows. That old person always has the wisdom and all that stuff. There's some old fools as well as young fools. You
Yeah,
don't always get wise because you get older, but at least I think it's always perspective and that you're open and that you have a heart of willingness to try. Because I think God will honor that.
absolutely. And to your point, I mean, it's all about just saving that one person, and that's the whole reason I wanted to do that. And then in closing, my important question I wanted to end with, if there's someone out there that is watching this that follows this podcast and they get something out of today, because they are struggling and they're in a bad spot in life, what would be your advice to them to help them realize good days are coming? You're not going to be stuck in these dark days forever. And what would be your advice to them?
Well, so part of it is doing. I have a friend who's struggling right now, and then I want to go in and change it and make it all better. But part of it is you got to on your side, be willing to accept and to hear what people are saying, to open and the door. And you got to be willing to do. Some you get so caught up in the bottom stuff, all the junk that's around you that it's hard to hear. I was telling him today, I was like, it's like a person that's drowning. You're splashing and you're doing all this when someone threw you a buoy or a life vest, but you won't see it because you're splashing and doing all that, but it's right there. And that's the very thing that can save you. Be open to hearing what people are saying, and then being open to taking a step of faith, being open to trying. And then, who knows where things are gonna go. But I think don't close the door or look at everybody as your enemy or make your world so small that you can't see the very thing that's there to save your life. And it may not come in the package that you want it to come in. It may not look like the pretty bells and whistles and all that stuff. It may be the ugliest thing around, but it may be the very thing that you need. That I found many a times that whatever I've wanted to or whatever I needed, it didn't come in the package I thought it was going to come. That's why you buy a lottery ticket. You want the $1 million right away. But then sometimes God is like, no, I care about you more than just that. I want you to be who you're supposed to be. So you're going through this struggle, but at the end, it's going to make you a better person so that you can then not only, maybe you'll get out of debt, maybe you won't, but maybe you'll be the person that saves the person that is supposed to do something great. Maybe you're the parent that raised the child or the grandchild that's supposed to do something great because of everything that you've gone through. You understand now the struggle. So now you can take your struggle and say, I don't want this to happen to whoever. I'm gonna take that knowledge and make that person a better person. Who knows what it is, but keep working on it.
Keep on working on it. Well, I appreciate you, Ken. That's all I got. You're a good man and a good leader, and you're definitely leading by faith and by example. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show. As you've probably figured out, once you stop playing, the one thing that all former players, man, you give them a chance to talk, they start talking forever. And you're like, please shut up, man. The show's only so long. But you haven't been on the mic in such a long time, so you get all giddy. So thank you for having me on the
No,
show.
you crushed it, man. I think like we've been talking about, it only takes one person to change their day, change their perspective, and hopefully change their life. And I think we're accomplishing that, especially you're accomplishing that with your books and taking the time to hop on today.
Really, one quick thing. So I'm
Yeah.
started this sports game. Seems weird, way out there. It's not a video game. It's actually where you're on the field, you're playing a game. I created this game that I think one thing I see is like God is people are getting so lack of community. Everybody's kind of in their own world on their own stuff. And from sports, I've learned, that's where I've learned my biggest lessons. So motion-based mental wellness, what we call it, is doing your own sport. And so I created this sport game, and hopefully you'll hear about it in the future and maybe be out there and play it. We'll see what type of
I'm
shape.
ready. Let me know the details. I'm
I,
excited.
all right, I got another player. Very cool.
I'm in. I'm all in.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you, Ken.
All right, man. Take care.